Well, happy Monday morning and welcome into Morning JOX here. That is, as you can tell, the sounds of an Alabama victory in the Iron Bowl. And that is exactly what took place over the weekend as the Crimson Tide secured their sixth straight victory in their rivalry with the Auburn Tigers. And that was a special moment for a number of fans across the state, but in comparison to everything else that went over the weekend, it was essentially just a minor moment in a weekend and particularly a Sunday filled with more college football news than I think I can ever remember occurring within a 24-hour period. So we appreciate you joining us here on this Reaction Monday. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell here with you for the next hour as – man, we could be here for the next 8 hours probably and still have things to talk about. So we will get into it as Alabama is victorious in the Iron Bowl. They will be playing once again in the SEC championship game coming up on Saturday, and Auburn finds themselves with a new football coach and a newfound love and respect for the country of Russia on this Monday morning, as the Auburn Tigers have hired Alex Golesh, the former University of South Florida head coach, who I know many of us here are familiar with, a popular name in the coaching search for the last handful of weeks. And Auburn, not the school that we had thought he would be going to, but at the last minute, that ultimately is how things came together. And we sit here with an Alabama victory on this Monday morning and a new head football coach for the Auburn Tigers. So we'll get into all of that and much, much more. Lane Kiffin making his final decision. Took a little longer than maybe we were expecting there, but we are looking at, as it stands right now, not only what's going on with Alabama and Auburn, but we're going to have at least 6 new coaches in the SEC, at least when all is said and done for next year. But before we dive into all that, Damian, just kind of your quick thoughts on the weekend. I know Alabama getting that 27-20 win in the Iron Bowl, and then Auburn's their hire of Alex Golesh. Just kind of your immediate thoughts on both of those big happenings from the weekend.
Man, it's been a fun 48 hours, to say the least. I think, the Iron Bowl, of course, we'll dive into it later on, but I think that it goes down as, just another just great physical matchup, physical game. Got a lot of questions for both sides. I know Auburn, a tough way for your season to end, but for Alabama, man, it wasn't the prettiest, and you knew going into it wasn't going to be a pretty ball game. But now you find yourself in the SEC championship. So everything that you want to accomplish is still up for grabs. No matter how the season started, it's all about how you finish. And Alabama has finished the correct way. Alex Golesh, love it. Absolutely love it. I'm a big Alex Golesh guy anyway, but the fact that he's at Auburn, I mean, I was getting a lot of mixed reactions over the past couple hours, well, the past 24 hours of, some Auburn fans are jumping for joy. Other ones are, well, what has he done? And people tend to forget, when you look at that Tennessee offense from a few years ago with Hendon Hooker and those guys, he was the one pulling the strings on all that. He was the offensive coordinator, and he gave Alabama fits his first couple of years at USF. And being competitive of just the team that he had. It wasn't like he was working with, SEC type talent. So I'm in the belief that I'm very optimistic of what Auburn could be under Alex Golesh. And who was the last guy? The Ole Miss, the former Ole Miss coach. What was his name again?
Lane Kiffin?
Yeah. Hope he enjoys Baton Rouge. He'll be out of there quick.
Yeah, it must be really tough to lose your coach after 11 games as a fan of a team.
Listen,
At least you don't have a lot of time to get it.
That's why it's the Pete Golden era, dog.
So are you going to be an Ole Miss fan next year or no?
I am committed to Ole Miss right now, and as far as I'm concerned, hotty toddy. We got the playoffs to worry about, and
you sound like the exact same guy you were just making fun of.
I know. It's tough, man. It's hard to break those old habits, man. When you've been around for 6 years and seen all the success, you start to gravitate towards it. But no, it's a year-to-year basis, and right now all eyes are all eyes are in Oxford, Mississippi right now. So as of right now, I'm still an Ole Miss fan.
Sounds like you won't be for very long, but that's not a surprise to any of us. Okay, so we'll get back to the Iron Bowl again. The fact that, I mean, it was a good game. Again, Alabama got out to a big lead early. Auburn then finds a way to claw back, but the final, 10, 11 minutes of that game ultimately dominated by Alabama. Some questionable officiating. I'm sure some of y'all will want to chime in on that. So we'll get back to the game here in just a little bit, but you can chime in 205-834-9450 on the courtesy GMC text line to share your thoughts on the Iron Bowl itself. But let's start with Alex Golesh, because I know a lot of you probably asking yourself the question of, okay, maybe I've heard the name Alex Golesh before, but I don't really know a whole lot about this guy. So what can I get excited about with Auburn and the hiring of this coach from South Florida? So Damian already mentioned it. He does have history in the Southeastern Conference. He was there at Tennessee for 2 years under Josh Heupel when they really got that thing going up in Knoxville. He mentioned the 2022 year, obviously with Hendon Hooker, where they were the #1 offense in college football. So that's how a lot of people, again, SEC ties, that's how a lot of you may remember him or go, oh, yeah, I remember those teams. So there you go. But Alex Golesh, he is the 33rd head coach now in the history of the Auburn football program. They agreed to a new 6-year contract. It's going to average out to about $7.4 million per year. That's going to be the base. So that's a nice almost $5 million a year pay raise for Golesh based on what he was making at USF. And if you're curious, that's about $900,000 more a year than they were paying Hugh Freeze before they fired and parted ways with him earlier this season. On top of that, it is a very incentive-heavy deal, so we've heard a lot of places talking about that kind of being the future of these new coaching contracts. That's what Auburn's doing here. So there's a lot of incentives in there for making the college football playoff as well as exceeding the 8-win mark. So, for example, it's laid out in the contract. If he were to win 9 games in a season, instead of making $7.4 million, he would make $8.9 million. If he were to win 12 games in a season, which would be quite an accomplishment, as we all know in this day and age of college football, he would make $12.25 million. So obviously, you can see some big-time incentives in there based on wins, and then there's also added bonuses for college football playoff appearances and things of that nature. So that's how the money's going to look for the new Auburn head coach. But in his career, he has been a head coach for 3 years now with the Bulls. He is 23-15 overall, 14-10 in American Conference play in those 3 seasons. The last 2 seasons, he has won a bowl game, so that's certainly a positive sign there. But maybe something that gives you a little bit of pause is the fact that, as good as USF has been, especially this year, and the fact that they have a significantly higher athletic budget than a lot of other schools in that conference, he has never finished higher than 4th in the American Conference. So I know some people were a little, maybe less than thrilled with that when you compare it to a guy like John Summerall, who's going to the conference championship game, for example. And then in 6 games against ranked opponents at USF, he has gone 2-4. Obviously, 2 of those wins came at the beginning of this year. If you remember when they beat Boise State and Florida in the first 2 games of this year. So that is a little bit of his track record there. As far as what USF has done this year, this is what should really excite you, I think, if you're an Auburn fan. So this year, USF, number 2 in the country in yards per game. They're averaging 500 yards per game on offense, and they're the 4th highest scoring offense in the country at 43 points a game. So that is certainly, I think, a big part of why you see Auburn going after a guy like Alex Golesh and wanting to bring him to the Plains. Now, defensively, certainly a lot of room for improvement there. They're 81st in yards allowed per game and 57th in points per game allowed defensively. So would make sense that he's coming over and bringing some offensive staff with him, not so much on the defensive side. And we will wait and see. It seems like it would be maybe a natural pairing for a defensive coordinator like DJ Durkin, who's done a really good job with Auburn, and the offensive mind of an Alex Golesh. I don't know where that stands, though. I don't know if that's likely to happen, if that's something that's been heavily discussed, if that's something that, I don't know. And who knows if, DJ Durkin maybe thought that, he was in line to receive a promotion and didn't, maybe that's something where he would decide that he would like to go seek employment somewhere else. I really don't know what the situation is there, but it does seem like a pairing of Golesh and DJ Durkin could be very successful for you there on the Plains. He also has a great history of success with mobile quarterbacks. You look at Byron Brown. You look at, I guess, maybe some of the earlier days, a little bit of Dylan Gabriel, not so much now, but Hendon Hooker, a little bit of that. We know he's worked with guys like Brock Purdy, Joe Milton as well. So there's definitely a track record there. And the good news, if you're Auburn, is that Ashton Daniels said over the weekend that he's coming back 100%. So if you have him and Deuce in the quarterback room next year, you probably feel pretty good about what that offense can ultimately look like. So he was already down on the Plains yesterday, saw him talking to recruits less than 24 hours after he was hired by Auburn. So that's he is a football guy. I will tell you that.
Yep.
I don't think you're going to see Alex Golesh on the golf course. Don't think you're going to see him out and about doing whatever it is that you like to do in your free time. He lives and breathes football, and that's what you're getting in Alex Golesh. So I think it's a great hire. We'll see ultimately how it works out over the next couple of years, but I think from the potential, maybe it's not John Summerall like a lot of people wanted. I know some people disappointed in that regard, but I do think if you're somebody that goes, I don't know who this guy is, I don't feel great about it, I think it's a good hire. I think it's a good direction for Auburn to move in, and I think especially after the game going the way it did on Saturday, it was going to be really, really hard to sell people on promoting DJ Durkin after for beating Mercer, essentially. So
right.
That's kind of my thought on that.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the SEC as a whole, just yesterday, how quickly things have turned. I mean, Kentucky's now open. Arkansas finally hired Ryan Silverfield, which I feel like everybody kind of knew that was going to happen. It just took a while. And with Alex Golesh making the jump to Auburn, Lane Kiffin going to LSU, it's just kind of unique of the spot that we're in. John Summerall going to Florida. It's very unique where we are in college football, where we saw so many coaches get fired, and it almost seemed as though a lot of administration or a lot of programs just didn't have an answer. And I kind of go back and forth of, you look at Penn State. They were the first domino. Like, they fired James Franklin basically 2 months ago, and they're still sitting empty-handed. And when you look at, the pressure of, we saw Missouri extend Eli Drinkwitz as soon as his name started bubbling up. So the quickness and the uniqueness of the calendar makes it very interesting of how coaching changes happen moving forward. And to your point about DJ Durkin, I never really looked at him as a real candidate to be the head coach, especially because I looked at it as that would be an absolute settle hire. It's an emotional hire because you can't look at his resume and say, yeah, this is going to be the coach that takes us over the top. Yeah, you can feel great about him being the defensive coordinator, which I do think he excels in, but there was nothing that he had done in the interim to make you feel as though, oh yeah, we could win with this, because you didn't win. You beat Mercer. Outside of that, yeah, your offense looked better, but he's also just kind of just being the facilitator. Like he had to take a step back because he has to accept the bigger role. Not to say that he wasn't prepared for it, not to say that he probably interviewed for it. I just didn't think that it would be an ideal fit. But I do think Alex Golesh, and looking at his resume and everything that he's accomplished, that this is a great hire. This is what you wanted in Hugh Freeze. At first, like, it's kind of, oh, he's an offensive guy. You can look at his numbers. It works. But Hugh Freeze's model was kind of outdated. Like, it was, oh yeah, he did this 8-9 years ago. Alex Golesh is doing it right here in the present and doing it right now with the guys that he's working with down in South Florida. So I do think that in hindsight, we could probably look back. We'll probably look back at this, 3-4 years from now and say, okay, well, yeah, this was his first SEC head coaching job. And yeah, he probably has some growing pains, but then you look at what he's already done. His track record kind of speaks that, when he gets this thing rolling, it rolls at a high level.
Yeah, hopefully that'll be the case for the Auburn Tigers. So I know a lot of people feeling good about the hire. Maybe not the person that they ultimately wanted, but I do think at the end of the day, is it the best hire that you could have made? Maybe, maybe not. Time will tell. But at the end of the day, I do think it's a good hire. and that Auburn is in a better spot now than they were 48, 78 hours ago, 72 hours ago, excuse me, in terms of their head coaching position. But we really want to hear from you, the Auburn fans out there. What are your thoughts on the Alex Golesh hire? Are you a big fan of this? Are you cautiously optimistic? Are you disappointed? What are your feelings? 205-834-9450. We'd love to have you chime in either on the phone lines or the courtesy GMC text line. Your thoughts on the future of the Auburn Tigers. And we also have to get to the actual game. We'll talk about the Iron Bowl and what the win sets up for Alabama. Are they securely in the college football playoff regardless now, or are they going to have to get a big win on Saturday and a rematch against Georgia in Atlanta? We'll dive into all that next. You're listening to Morning Jocks on a Reaction Monday. Welcome back into Morning Jocks here on a Reaction Monday. Maybe the best Reaction Monday we've ever had, just in terms of the magnitude of changes and results from over a crazy rivalry weekend in the world of college football. So we spent the first chunk of the show talking about Alex Golesh, the new head coach of the Auburn football program, and kind of giving you a little bit of a backstory on his career and why ultimately Auburn tabbed him to be the 33rd head coach of their football program moving forward. And we're going to hear from some of you coming up with your thoughts on the hire. Are you excited? Are you cautiously optimistic? How do you feel about the future of Auburn now that you know Alex Golesh is going to be leading the charge? But with Auburn hiring a new head coach, we had to look over the actual Iron Bowl just a little bit that was going on Saturday, because it was a big game with a lot on the line for Alabama as they were heading into Jordan-Hare Stadium, a must-win situation there for the Crimson Tide, as a loss in that game would have knocked them out of not only the SEC championship, but the college football playoff conversation as well for a second season in a row. But Alabama able to pull out a one-score 27-20 victory there on the plains of Auburn. It started off looking like it was going to be a pretty dominant game for the Crimson Tide, but unfortunately for them, they just, kind of took the foot off the gas, and Auburn finally found semblance of life there in the second half. But Alabama, they go up 17-0. They're up 17-0 with about 12 minutes left in the second quarter. I will say the first quarter of this game was the longest first quarter I think of any game I've ever seen in my life. And in terms of the number of timeouts and just it took forever for the first quarter of this game to get by. But you look up, Alabama's up 17-0. And that's, I mean, you go back and you look, there was an open touchdown to Jeremy Bernard that Ty Simpson had missed earlier. So it's 17-0, and you're feeling like if you're Alabama, you've left some stuff out there on the field even. And credit to Auburn, though, at that point, right, because they were able to go down. They were able to kick 2 field goals before halftime, make it a 17-6 game, knowing they were going to get the ball back to start the second half. And they took advantage of that big time. They had the 64-yard touchdown to Malcolm Simmons out of half. So next thing you know, it's 17-13, right? This was a game Alabama was up 17-0. It's now 17-13. And maybe the craziest part of the entire game is the fact that Connor Talty was actually able to hit a couple of field goals for Alabama to put them up 20-13. He had hit one at the very beginning of the game as well that was from 45 yards, which I don't think anybody had Alabama making a 45-yard field goal on their bingo card, but they did. But it was a game where, like a lot of games this year, the offense for Alabama just fell flat in the second half. Auburn able to take advantage. They tie it up at 20 with about 11 and a half minutes left to go in the game. And what would ensue was essentially Alabama taking over the remainder of the football game. They went on an 8-minute drive, aided by a couple of penalties. I will be the first one to tell you, is it necessarily the most egregious roughing the passer call I've ever seen? No, but I can understand where you would be like, I can't believe they called that, but it is what it is. Auburn also absolutely destroyed Ty Simpson out of bounds one time and didn't get called for that. So, it is what it is. But Alabama gets a big call, a couple of big calls on that drive to keep things going. They get down. Auburn makes a great goal line stand, forces them into a 4th down decision. And instead of kicking the field goal to take a 3-point lead, Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb put the family jewels on display and decided to go for it. And Alabama scores on a touchdown to Isaiah Horton. They go up 27-20. A couple of plays later, Auburn's driving down the field, and Bray Hubbard rips the ball out from Cam Coleman. Deontay Lawson recovers, and Alabama walks out with a 27-20 victory. Their 3rd straight in Jordan-Hare Stadium, 6th straight Iron Bowl victory overall, and now Alabama finds themselves in the SEC championship against Georgia this weekend, Damian, and it would certainly set up. It's just crazy to think that if Alabama loses the SEC championship, by the way, I don't think that's going to happen. And the reason why is not only is Alabama in the SEC championship, if you just look at it by the way that the format of the game, Alabama is currently the number 1 team in the Southeastern Conference. They are the number 1 seed. They are the home team in the SEC championship game. You're telling me that the team that is hosting the SEC championship game could miss the playoff with a loss in that game. It could happen. I don't think that it will happen, and people can get mad and say, well, they just wouldn't let that happen to Alabama. I don't think you want to do that to the SEC. I don't think that's a message you want to send to the conference that you pretty important to. I'm just saying.
You're right.
Love it or hate it, I find it hard to believe that the team that is hosting the conference title game in the SEC is not going to be in the playoffs. Maybe they won't be.
Don't leave it into the committee's hands. You go out there and handle your business.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Then we have to worry about it.
But then the Georgia team that's probably going to be number 3 on Tuesday,
right?
They could find themselves out. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think the chances are slim. But here's the thing, and this all could have been avoided if Texas A&M would have handled their business on Friday night, but that didn't happen. But I look at this Alabama team, and going back to the Iron Bowl, the biggest question mark that everybody had essentially the last month of the year was Alabama has no run game. Well, they made it a point against Auburn we're not getting cute with it. We are establishing the run game. Mm-hmm. Now, the passing game took a little bit of a toll. Ty Simpson, it was a tough day. It was a rough day. But when Alabama needed to be effective running the football, they were able to do it. And that's where Alabama becomes dangerous, because I'm going to bank on Ty Simpson not having that bad of a passing game again. Like, it's kind of one of those, it happened. I've seen it. Do I think that's the norm? Absolutely not. But as far as running the football, that was the best that Alabama has done essentially since the month of October. And I do think that defensively, Auburn got a lot of yardage, but a lot of it was kind of just happenstance. Like it wasn't like they established drives consistently to put Alabama's defense on their heels. Now, they had a couple plays here and there. I mean, like, if you're Malcolm Simmons, you kind of look back at the film.
Well, you had like 130 yards on 2 plays from him, so yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm kind of lucky to be in this situation. I'm good. But I think Ashton Daniels, I came away from the game with Ashton, for somebody that's it's very similar to Jackson Arnold. For somebody that's played a lot of football, I just don't expect him to be as, I'm not even going to say timid, but he seemed like he was just nervous the entire time. Like, it was more of a.
So did his receivers, to be fair.
Yeah, like it just
the amount of passes they dropped.
It never felt comfortable. Even when he tucked it down to run the football, he was looking for contact. And I'm like, man, it's the Iron Bowl, big dog. You gotta just leave it out there. And I feel as though they left a lot of plays out there offensively. And credit to Alabama's defense. They dialed up pressure when they needed to. And I mean, the receivers, they just were not making plays consistently. And we can argue all you want about Ryan Williams, Cam Coleman, all this stuff, but superstars make superstar plays. They were non-existent, because Cam Coleman, to me,
they were both basically Ryan Williams didn't get targeted a single time, so he was a non-factor.